You could forgive the Breakers for having a few pre-match nerves this week. On Friday, they'll be trying to set a new club record for the most consecutive games without a loss, in front of what could be a record crowd, and against the NSL's top team.
If you're not going to be motivated to play a team like Sydney Olympic, well, you're never going to be, and you shouldn't be in the game, I suppose.
One sure to be fired up is Brad Witcherak. At last night's training, the midfielder showed few signs of the knee injury which sidelined him on Sunday, and he'll return to the squad this week at the expense of Luke Tomic. The rest of the lineup won't be finalised until later tonight, but regardless of who takes to the field, Lee Sterry is confident of a strong showing.
If you run a line through when we have played the bigger tall poppies, David and Goliath, if you like, type battles, we've come out on more winning sides than losing sides.
And the Breakers are trying to make sure things run smoothly for fans, putting on more ticket, food, security and transport services.
Hopefully it'll be non-stop from start to finish, and we get a good crowd here.
If it's a house full sign anyway and there's two more people standing at the gate, they can sit with me and Lowy, all right? I guarantee that.
Newcastle City Hall, a cup of tea and the beginning of a push to recover millions of dollars from Bob Carr's coffers begins.
The state government had an obligation to hand that on to local government from understandings in the past, and they've decided, New South Wales government has decided not to do so.
From the early 90s, the national competition policy was implemented from Canberra to make services more competitive. Utilities like electricity had to be delivered with an efficiency comparable with private practice. Local governments also had to change the way they delivered services.
During that period of time, they've been diverted away from their core business, which is actually getting work done out in the field. Now we need to catch up, and these funds would be very useful in that area.
Now funding is being made available to state governments to compensate for the changes. Queensland, Western Australia and Victoria are all passing on millions to their councils. A spokesperson for Michael Egan, the state's treasurer, says councils are now getting electricity, water and other services more cheaply thanks to the work of the state government. As a result, they shouldn't expect anything more.
Whether we see the Treasurer or the Premier, I don't know. I think with these sorts of matters you really need to talk to the Premier.
This was the Breakers' big night, and while good weather failed to show, the guest list ballooned over 6,900, the second biggest crowd ever, and after 18 minutes Glenmore gave them what they'd come to see. Bob Catlin is a favourite at Birmingham Gardens, and it's easy to see why, but Olympic aren't the leaders for nothing. Bookings highlighted the rest of the first half, but nothing shone about this challenge by Travis Dodd, the midfielder red-carded just before the break. With 10 men, Newcastle was always going to do it tough, but defender Todd McManus showed that sometimes less is more. 2-1, coming off the bench, Vasco Trasempski didn't take long to get dirty. The challenge gave Newcastle a shot from the spot, and Andy Harper stepped up. A whirlwind few minutes for Newcastle. It was hard not to get carried away. There was still plenty of soccer left in this match, with Olympic hitting back once more. However, this was Newcastle's night. And the players weren't about to forget it, savouring after-match celebrations. Keeper Bob Catlin was cut by Olympic 2 years ago. For him, the win was even sweeter.
Fantastic result. It's right up there with any result I've played in.
Andy Harper too has played a mountain of NSL games and rates this as one of the best.
To go a man down and to still win, that's one of the sweetest, there's no doubt about it.
His coach, though, said it all.
It's a pleasure to coach these blokes. You know what they lack in ability, they certainly make up for in passion and pride.
It wasn't smiles all round, though.
This is just a taste of what you can expect from the Max team, sportsmen aged up to 25 who demo freestyle motocross and BMX, inline skating and wakeboarding.
These guys are as good as any of the mainstream sports people at their respective sports, so we're really just trying to develop those sports and give them a bit of a go.
23-year-old Daniel Watkins has given away his trade as an electrician to live most of the year in Florida and travels around the world doing extreme sports.
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate at the minute. This is all I do to make a living, and I'm stoked. There's 5 of us in Australia right now that travel the world on the World Cup. The World Cup starts in Australia, goes all through the States, all through Canada, all through Europe. So
the team will be performing shows at the Speedway Friday and Saturday nights, and they'll also be shooting the first Australian series of Pepsi's Live Life to the Max commercials right here in Newcastle.
Yeah, there's 5 new ads coming out, and where all the Australians are on them.
A lot of kids in this country actually participate in a lot of these different sports. It really gives them something to aspire to and see what you can do with it, and even earn money doing it, which is pretty amazing.
Matt Carden, NBN News. A new year and a new century, with the Newcastle Knights wasting no time in launching the new look NRL season, where an emphasis on young talent will keep Knights' blood fresh and healthy.
The player talent that has been recruited, I think, is exceptional. They've all got strong reputations, and after meeting the gentlemen, they're very strong-minded, and they believe in the team and what it's capable of.
To launch the 2000 season, a big co-celebration on the shores of Lake Macquarie, the council there marking its bicentennial, and the Knights cementing a wider supporter base in a year with fewer clubs in the NRL comp.
Arranged a good range of sporting events over the week, over the year of our bicentenary, but to start it off with the Knights launch on the 28th, that really is tremendous, and we're very grateful for the support of the Knights in making it all happen.
The Knights 2000 lineup representing everywhere from the Hawkesbury to the Tweed.
Parsons is very much a local bloke. Fairley's not far from being a local bloke, having hailed from the Central Coast. And Ben Kennedy is from the far North Coast. They all came up here with a dream of winning a competition and believe that we have the team that's capable of that.
Matt Carden, NBN News.
In 1990 it employed 4 people. Now, with all the facilities for aircraft and passengers at Williamtown, that number has grown to almost 400. Port Stephens Mayor Steve Bustede now wants to examine the economic, environmental and social future of Newcastle Airport as early as next Tuesday's council meeting.
What I'm asking council to do is to do a major three-sided study which could lead to a rezoning proposal.
His major concern is that Newcastle Airport not be faced with the same problem as Mascot, with many Sydney residents suffering the effects of noise pollution.
I think that's logical. I think when we're looking at the situation where the federal government has actually resumed residential properties because of problems, that I think that it's only smart to do this.
He'll also be asking council to send a message to the Air Force about the recent fuel spill into Williamtown's waterways.
What we're going to be telling the Air Force, I'm pretty sure, on Tuesday night is that we don't expect that sort of thing to happen again.
Australian rally driver Michael Guest has just touched down in the UK and immediately made tracks to join his teammates to launch the 2000 Hyundai Castrol Challenge for the FAI World Rally Championship.
A rally isn't like a Formula One race where you have 12 or 14 corners. You know, there's 10,000 corners in a rally, and usually there's one there with your name on it, and you need to get through without catching that one out. So the experience that you need to gain in the World Championship to do well takes 3 or 4 years.
Guest's teammates Kenneth Erickson and Alistair McRae in no doubt about the Novocastrian's abilities.
Don't think he needs really any big advice because he's very fast already, but maybe by tuning the car maybe. And I'm very happy for Michael because he gets a really good chance now.
It's a big change for Guest, guiding a vehicle with front-wheel drive that won't be as quick as he's used to.
But it's time that to break the mould and move into real cars, like we see behind us here, and prove that an Australian driver can make it there. And that's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Guest will drive 6 events in the 14-event series. Matt Carden, NBN News.
slight bruising, a few cuts and soreness. Darren Albert escaped pretty well considering his accident late yesterday. Cruising on his Honda Fireblade motorbike, Albert slammed into a car, causing some anxious moments before later being cleared of serious injury.
Yeah, very lucky I didn't break a few more bones, and that really...
Albert broke his other foot in the lead up to 1998 and broke his ribs last pre-season. After adding to the list once again, this time his bike may get an extended stay in the garage.
It's definitely going in the shed, but for how long I don't know yet.
There hasn't been much that has stopped national champion Jackie Munro in recent times. However, she struck a major hurdle at a Grand Prix meet at the weekend. Just as Munro began powering away from the field, she tore her right hamstring just before a hurdle, forcing her out and off the track for immediate treatment. The Madawi teenager was treated in Newcastle last night, and early reports indicate only a minor tear that should keep her out for 3 weeks. The Olympic hopeful returned to Sydney today for a more accurate assessment from State Institute of Sport specialists.
A perfect dumping ground hiding a dreadful sight. Old tyres tipped down a steep bank in Olney State Forest.
It's certainly the biggest tyre dumping episode that we've uncovered in the Hunter region. It represents a very irresponsible thinking on the part of whoever did it, and we're very disappointed that it's occurred here in the Wadigan Mountains, which are a major tourist attraction.
State Forests Officer Mike Prima estimates more than 1,000 tyres have been dumped. The cost of disposing of them properly would have been about $3,000. Now State Forest will foot the clean-up bill, likely to be more than 5 times as high. Markings on the tyres have been recorded in the hope of tracing who owned them last, while nearby residents have been asked to watch for trucks using roads to the forest after dark. The police have been informed, but the Environmental Protection Authority is investigating the crime.
Any information that we receive we'll pass on to the EPA and others, and hopefully we'll be able to find whoever dumped the tyres here.
Individuals face penalties of $250,000 if caught dumping tyres. Corporations can pay anything up to $1 million. David McElwain, NBN News. Yanda's 4 9-seater aircraft haven't flown for weeks, but they're still burning $1,600 a day. Whatever compensation the airline receives from Mobil, it will help it survive the crisis, at least for the moment.
I think it's a start, and it will be of great assistance for people like us to remain in business and keep our businesses intact until such time as we're back in the air.
Paul Rees runs Yanda Airlines from Scone and Singleton. He's not interested in joining any class action against Mobil, which could take years in court. He wants a solution to the contamination problem now. He says testing isn't the way to go and has submitted a procedure for flushing his chieftain's fuel systems clean to CASA.
Well, it's got to happen eventually, so we may as well do it now and let's not waste as much time on the test.
Colin Pay, whose company carries out crop dusting from his base at Scone, agrees CASA should forget about trying to test for contaminants.
They're all jumping at shadows, it's not going to block up at all.
He claims to have used 6,000 litres of contaminated fuel without any sign of problems, and like Yanda Airlines, he believes a plane properly flushed with new fuel would be right to go.
If they used a bit of common sense and let the engineers clean the aeroplanes, and the ones that wanted to try it go and fly around for an hour or two and see what happens.
A bit of teeing off practice at the course today in preparation for the tournament starting tomorrow. For 23-year-old Cherie Burns, a chance to continue riding a wave of success that saw her win the Tasman Cup with fellow Australian team members in New Zealand last November. Now she's up against some of them.
It's probably harder to do the team mate thing because we play golf as individuals, but we've had weekends for team building, so that got us all together ready for the Tasman Cup and the Interstate Series.
Tasman Cup colleague Rebecca Stevenson also out there chipping away. She's currently Australia's #1 ranked amateur and keen to improve on her ranking at Belmont last year when she came in third. Also on the green, West Australian Helen Beattie comparing strokes with Rebecca ahead of what could be a sweltering day of competition.
The heat, that's a worry. Especially I'm teeing off at 12 o'clock for the next 2 days, I think. So, yeah, I'm going to be out there right in the middle of the heat. It's going to be pretty bad.
And another challenge at Belmont, strong winds that are a challenge for any player.
I've worked a bit on my wind shots with the Australian coach, Ross Herbert. Feeling a lot more confident with wind shots now. And, so I'm not worrying if it blows.
The 4-day contest goes through till Sunday. Matt Carden, NBN News.
Workers from the heavy engineering company's 5 workshops assembled at Freeman's Waterhole today to be updated on the company's latest position on a new enterprise bargaining agreement.
We've been lucky enough this one to stop any award conditions, so there has been some successful gains in it, but at the end of the day, dollars are still the thing that people are after.
And it seems there aren't enough of them to satisfy the workers from Parramatta to Muswellbrook. The current wage offer, a 7% pay rise over a 2-year period, will be voted on in a secret ballot next week, the 4th held in just 3 years. But once again, it seems unlikely that workers will agree to the latest offer, even though the company has threatened to scale the rise down to 5% if they reject it.
I think workers, they'll give it a really good thought about it, but at the end of the day, not having picked up any money other than skills enhancement, I think they still want a bit more on the base.
Workers will vote on the enterprise agreement between the 25th of January and 15th of February. Helen Kapalos, NBN News. Fishing is one of the country's most popular pastimes, but the state government's plans to charge recreational fishermen a $25 annual fee has cast a sour note.
It's fair enough if you're a professional fisherman making a living out of it, but just for the person who wants to take their children out or visiting relatives on the coast, I just think it's a bit rude, that's all.
Well, I reckon $25 is no way, it's too much.
But sometime anglers say the outburst isn't just about the money. Like commercial fishermen, they're doubtful the funds will be used for the sole purpose of replenishing stocks.
I'd like to see that. I'll believe that when I see it. Until then, I don't know.
Furthermore, they're not yet convinced stocks in any of the targeted waterways are really under threat, but are in fact seasonal stocks that always come and go. Inland fishermen have paid a fee for close to 2 years now, but Premier Carr promises this fee will ensure the kids of today can fish tomorrow. As for those children under the age of 18, under the proposal they're exempt from paying the licence. No such luck for those occasional anglers that fish just once a year, required to pay a one-off $10 fee. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
The White Shirt Brigade delivered the news that the CEO dreaded. The company will lose government assistance to the value of $2.5 million in June, and with contracts going to overseas producers, Derek Hodge says it's better to wind up than carry on.
We tendered for the bed linen for SOCOG. We failed to get that. We think it went to imports. We've made all the fabric for police shirting for 15 years, and we've just lost that to another cheap program.
The company tried to solve its problems over an extended Christmas break. It couldn't, and now the voluntary administrator is in control. A symptom of the industry's failure, 300 workers will pay the greatest price.
And what can you do? Just got to go look for another job here, so I don't want to go on the dole clock. Got a baby on the way and that, so...
I'm 47. I mean, kids can't get jobs when they're out of school. You know, they're just that. So there's no hope for us.
Wages will be paid up till Monday, but nothing more is likely before the end of February, when all leave monies and superannuation should also be paid.
But in relation to the redundancy package, we're talking about maybe over the next 12 to 15 months getting 50 cents in the dollar.
Workers seeking redundancy payments will fall behind banks in the line of creditors at their first meeting next Friday. David McElwain, NBN News.
A link-style course on the coast of Lake Macquarie, the Belmont Golf Club could have been in the desert for all the players knew, with sweltering heat and dry winds making things tough. The brolly, one of the most used sticks in the bag. Tougher still for Nilsson Bay's Cherie Burns. Starting day 2 at 5 over, the highly ranked Australian amateur slipped further back at the third with a double bogey, but fought back hard to eventually end the day 8 over. Overnight leader Susie Fisher started well with a number of good approach shots, setting her well up on the greens, but the Coffs Harbour teenager just couldn't buy a birdie on the front nine. It cost her, carding a 76 to drop back 1 over the card. A rare pickup for Melissa Russell with a birdie on the same hole, but many went without. Toronto's Julie Swanson dropped from 1 under to 8 over, but it was much better news for Nikki Campbell, who shot a 70 to sit at 3 under and take the lead. The ACT golfer was sharp on the greens as well and is well placed at the halfway mark to defend her title. But lurking just behind, Australia's number 1 amateur Rebecca Stevenson. And number 2 in Helen Beattie. They'll be leading the charge to stop Campbell making it 2 from 2 over the next 2 days.
The push for closed-circuit surveillance cameras in inner-city Newcastle is certainly not a new concept, but the cause was renewed over the weekend when 2 families were attacked outside City Hall, sparking calls for community safety. And the City Centre Committee says it has just the plan, with the installation of closed-circuit cameras now a matter of weeks away.
It's really a positive all round, and it's a win-win for the business and the residents and council.
It'll certainly be assistance to the police side of it as well, insofar as possible identification later on of offenders.
A business levy will fund the $100,000 project, which will pay for the first 5 cameras to be alternated around the city's crime hotspots. Council will be briefed on the 22nd of February. Meanwhile, another blow to the civic redevelopment project today, with Westpac announcing it will close down its civic branch. And given that Council spent more than $1.5 million on the refit, it's no wonder the news wasn't taken well.
I'm not at all happy with this. I think it's not a sensible step as far as Westpac are concerned. In the long term, I think it will harm their business.
The Business Chamber says the local branch is the latest victim of industry cutbacks.
Banks, including Westpac, have given a commitment they would have a look at the whole notion of branch closures in regional areas of Australia. This is the question, I think, of seriously asking Westpac, how seriously can we take their word?